We're going to be in John chapter 2 today for our this morning's message. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. This is the story of Jesus and the miracle of Cana. It was actually his first public miracle that we really know of that's recorded in the scripture. In fact, even in this text, it says that from John, the author of this book, says that this was the first time that Jesus revealed his glory. And so we brought a message last week on the miracle at Cana. And there's a statement in this passage that just from the very beginning has stuck out to me. And I referenced it last week, but I really want to anchor in it this week. And so I'm excited about that. The title of this morning's message is this my problem? Is this my problem? And, I think the truth of the matter is that we all struggle with carrying burdens that are not our burdens to carry, right? We struggle with saying no to certain struggles and needs and problems that arise, that are brought to our attention. And so I'm hoping to with this message this morning, I'm hoping to bring balance to that conversation, all right? You all know Galatians 6:2. I believe that's the passage that says, carry each other's burdens, right? Bear each other's burdens. And that's a big passage, right? And we are called to be there for each other, to help each other through struggles. And so I don't want anyone, to take this morning's message the wrong way. But we also are called to have certain boundaries in our life. And so that's what this morning's message is all about. This is one of those things, this idea of, is this my problem? I think it's something that really we struggle with, right? Learning to live the life of faith without guilt. That's huge. All right, well, let's get into our text. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. We're going to read this together. It says, the next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. Verse 4, and this is the key passage for today. It says, dear woman, that's not our problem. Jesus replied, my time has not yet come. But his mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told the servants, fill the jars with water. When the jars had been filled, he said, now dip some out and take it to the master of ceremonies. So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, though of course the servants knew, he called the bridegroom over. A host always serves the best wine first, he said. Then when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now. This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So we really dove into that story last week, and I encourage you, if you missed last week's message, to check it out on our Facebook as well. But in this story, they're at a wedding, right? And they've run out of wine. And in life is full of moments where something quietly runs out. Most of the time, it's not dramatic. It's not all at once. It's just slowly. It happens, right? Our joy begins running thin. Our patience will run low. Energy's running out. Hope feels like it starts leaking, like the ship is sinking, right? And often, nobody really notices it. It just kind of happens. In your own life, many times you don't notice it until it's pretty far advanced. You're still showing up, you're smiling, you're doing what you're supposed to do, what you're called to do, right? And that's exactly the kind of moment here that Jesus steps into at Cana. It's not a crisis. It's not a life or death emergency, right? It's just a problem that, joy could run out, right? This problem could ruin the joy of the moment if it isn't handled, All right. So we know that he's at a wedding. He was invited to this wedding with his disciples. This is a celebration. Hey, for the couple, this is a once in a lifetime event. Well, during the party, as I said, the wine is running out, right? The bridegroom and bride, they don't know it. The master of ceremonies, he doesn't know it. Most of the crowd, they don't know it, right? And really, this thing might seem small to us, right? It might not bother us. We might just send someone to the local grocery store and restock real quick, right? But back then, they didn't have, for us, it's a county market or a Hy-Vee around here. They didn't have that. It wasn't quite that simple. And in fact, in that culture, this was a big deal, right? If you ran out of wine during this celebration, it was a moment of embarrassment for sure, but it would bring shame on your family. And who wants to start out their new family with a moment like this, right? And so Mary, who's there, Jesus' mother, she notices it, right? That the wine is running out. And then she brings it to Jesus' attention, right? Jesus now notices. And then Jesus says something very surprising in this interaction, something that, I don't know, it's just gripped me. I haven't been able to let this statement go. In verse 4, this is what he says to his mother, right? A need is brought to the attention of Jesus. And we often think of Jesus as just like, let's line up because he's going to fix every problem. But this is what he says, dear woman, that is not our problem. I want you to think about that. These words actually came out of Jesus' mouth to his mother about a problem. He says, that is not our problem. Man, that should shake you. That should unsettle you just a little bit, right? And then he continues on and he says, my time has not yet come. In other words, this is what Jesus is really saying, right? He's saying this problem that you've just brought to my attention, it does not get to control me. It doesn't get to control me. Man, we would do well to shift our thinking and align with Jesus in this way, right? This is the major point that I want to bring to our attention, okay? How often do we allow problems, concerns, and deadlines to control us? Have you ever felt guilty because there was a problem? There was something brought to your attention and you just simply did not handle it. You could not handle it. Maybe you had other things going on and you had to say no. Or after thinking about it, you handled it in a different way than what maybe was expected of you. Have you ever felt guilty? Have you ever felt like you were a failure even as a Christian because you did not meet a need or you were not there for someone who you knew was struggling? Guys, this is a real tension because I think that many of us carry this secret burden that we have to be Jesus for everybody. Everyone, every problem that we encounter, every struggle, every heartache, every loss that someone else is going through, we better be there for them. Or else Jesus is displeased with us. And if that's you, and if that's your spirit, and that's your struggle, man, I'm going to repeat what Jesus said for you this morning. He says to his mother, why is that our problem? That is not our problem. So Jesus, he looks at the situation, right? He doesn't deny that there's a problem. You don't see him do that. Okay. He simply says it's not our problem. He doesn't minimize the problem either, right? He doesn't shame anyone for needing help. Man, I don't want that message to get missed in the wholeness of everything else I'm going to say. Jesus never shames anyone for needing help. And he'll never shame you for needing help either. If you come to him with a struggle, with a problem, he says, bring your burdens to me, right? That's exactly what he wants you to do. You'll never get shame from Jesus, okay? But so I don't want you to miss that in this larger teaching. But what Jesus doesn't do, so he doesn't deny the problem, he doesn't minimize it, but he also doesn't start rushing and panicking either. In fact, you never see a panicked Jesus in all of the New Testament, right? This matters for us because most of our lives are lived very reactively. This is very true of me, okay? So I'm preaching to myself. Our lives are lived very reactively. If something feels urgent, we panic, we rush, we rush to fix, we take control, don't we? But Jesus is showing us another way in this story, right? Here's the principle. Not every need that you see is an assignment that God is giving you. Not every need that you see that comes to your attention is an assignment from God for you. Just because something is running out doesn't mean that you're supposed to rush and panic and scramble to fix it or your faith is weak. It doesn't mean that. Some of you are very exhausted this morning because you've been responding to every problem that comes your way like it's yours and only yours to fix. Take notice here that Jesus pauses in this problem. He discerns. He stays present. Absolutely. He doesn't run away from the situation, but he's there. He's discerning. He's thinking. He's pondering, right? He's not reacting very aggressively. And so I want you to think about how often in your own life problems come and we say things like, I guess I need to handle this. If I don't do it, then who will? Man, that's convicting to me because I've said that statement many times in my life. If I don't do it, then it's not going to get done, right? I can't let this thing fall apart. And so we take it upon ourselves to hold it all together. Jesus is showing us here that faith doesn't mean fixing everything. It does not. Faith means listening and seriously considering before acting. And I'm going to say this, that considering, it doesn't just mean thinking through it rationally. It means taking time to pray. Listen, if you're reacting so fast and so aggressively that you don't even have time to pray, then guess what? You're reacting too fast. You're taking something on 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10. You're taking on something you should not be taking on. Maybe it's just in this very moment because you have not stopped to pray. You have not stopped. You have not taken intentional time to say, God, is this really something you want me to handle? God, this text that I just got, is this for me? What do you want me to do with this? You don't have to respond. You know that? I know that there's like this unwritten rule that you must respond to every text that you've ever received. Don't do that. Don't live your life that way. Every deadline, it's not for you. Okay? People try to put deadlines on you all the time, expectations on you all the time. You know it's true. You don't have to bend to those. Jesus is showing us that. That's not the life that he calls you to. Okay? Now, don't misunderstand me. Balance in everything, right? We have responsibilities. We have things that we have said, yes, we are gonna take these on, and we are gonna be responsible for this. And so, don't hear what I'm not saying in that. But there's so many things that come our way. You need to stop, and I need to stop. Consider prayerfully for more than just a minute before acting. Okay? Now, that's Jesus. That's what he does. Now I want to draw your attention to Mary's response because I think that this is equally as powerful. All right, this is amazing. Look when Mary comes and she gives the problem to Jesus and Jesus says, look, why is that our problem? My time has not yet come. What does she do? What does Mary do? Now, look, she brings the problem to Jesus, and that's important. That's step one, okay? She goes to Jesus. That's step one in our life. Any problem, our problem, someone else's problem, go to Jesus. Okay, you got a struggle. You got something that's come up. This maybe even it feels very urgent to you. What doesn't she do? She doesn't gossip. Okay, she doesn't complain to other people. She doesn't start going around to all the people in the party and say, "Oh, guess what? The wine's run out." Taking that same urgency and putting it on other people. Boy, we do that a lot. We really do. She doesn't try to take control of the situation. Notice Mary doesn't go to solve the problem. Mary doesn't go to the servants herself to start to figure out what they can do. Maybe we can go find some more wine somewhere else. Maybe we can borrow some from the neighbors. She doesn't do any of that. That's often how we react. We go into fix-it mode right now. We never go to Jesus. She goes to Jesus. Then what she do? She simply states the need. She says, listen, Jesus, they have no more wine. It's run out. That's it. He responds, right? She names the need and then she releases it. What does she do? She tells the servants, she says, hey, whatever he tells you to do, do it. And she literally walks away. She walks away from the problem. Are you hearing that? She doesn't hover. She doesn't check in with Jesus repeatedly. She doesn't suggest solutions to him. She doesn't get anxious and stay anxious about it. She doesn't start micromanaging Jesus. She tells the servants, do whatever he tells you to do. And then she goes back to the party. She goes on with life. Guys, there is maybe not a more beautiful picture of faith in all the Bible than Mary right here. She brings the need to him. She leaves it in his hands. She knows who she's talking to. Do you know who you're talking to when you have a problem and you bring that to Jesus? I don't think we do, because we hover, we micromanage, we start making suggestions to him, don't we? God, this is what I think you should do. God, this is how I would handle it. Mary just gives it over to him and she goes back to the party. Guys, this is huge. Do not miss it. Most of us give our problems to God like this. Here you go, God. But I'm still going to worry about it. Mary says, here it is. I trust you. And she walks away. She hands it over and she refuses to carry it anymore. It's not indifference to the need or problem. It's simply surrender to the one who she knows can handle it, right? He's got this. And in your problems and in the problems you encounter in other people's lives, listen, sometimes you take that to God in prayer and you hand it over and you say, God, I know you've got this. You've got this. I'm carrying this burden with my friend or my coworker or my spouse or whoever it is. You're going to carry it with them in prayer. And then you're going to say, you know what, God, I trust you. You can handle this. Now, again, that's not indifference to the need. It's not indifference to the problem. It's simply surrender. The truth is, guys, there are many instances in our own life that we do this very thing. Okay, we go out to eat, right? The waiter comes, the waitress comes, they take our order, and we trust them, do we not? They go back, they put it into the computer, the chef prepares the meal, and they bring it out to us. How many of you follow the waiter to the kitchen, make sure they put it in the computer the right way, and then go to the chef and make sure the chef prepares the meal properly, and then help the waiter or waitress take it back to your table? That's absurd. You don't do that. Some of you might want to do that sometimes, but you don't do that because you know it's not acceptable and you trust them to handle it, right? But we do this to God. We make our request and then we go with him to the computer to make sure he puts the request in properly, just as we thought it should be. Then we help him as he fixes it. We hover over him. We micromanage him, right? And you say, no, I don't do that. When you get anxious and worried, you're absolutely doing that. That's what that's all about. That's hovering. Now, what else? We go to the dentist, right? Do you guide the dentist when they fill your cavity? When you go to the doctor, if you have surgery, right? Do you tell the surgeon how to perform surgery? Do you give your lawyer legal counsel? No, you trust that they are going to handle the situation, right? Now, look, I'm not saying in this case that God is a lawyer or he's a waiter just waiting to take our orders in heaven, but these examples ring true. It still matters for our story today and what we're trying to talk about. We are not micromanaging these things. We're bringing our issues to the attention of others, and we're trusting them to handle it. Even if we may very well be able to handle it. You might be pretty handy around the house and you might have a project that you could handle, but you don't have the time. And so you might hire a contractor to come in and fix that and trust them to handle it. Trust me, I am a contractor. I do carpentry work. The worst thing is a person that hovers, a customer that hovers, that begins to tell you all the ways that they would do it, right? Or the ways to fix it. And you think, why am I even here? Right? And so, but yet we do this to God. We do this. And I've been guilty of it in my own life so many times, right? Look, questions worth asking. Questions worth asking before you take any problem that you encounter onto your own shoulders. Can I help with this? Number one, can I help with this? You know, you actually can't fix every problem. Sometimes you haven't walked through the situation that person is walking through. You haven't gone through it. You don't know. And so you can't help. You know, there are many instances, heartaches with people that I've encountered, struggles and losses that, to be honest, I don't have the right words for them. I don't know how to help them. Now, we can pray for them. We can spend time with them. We can try to encourage them. But the truth is, we can't fix their problem. There's so many problems that you and I want to fix, but we simply cannot fix them. You're going to have to come to terms with that. Number two question I would ask is, should I help with this? Just because you can fix a certain problem doesn't mean that you should. And there's no way you can get the answer to that without first praying about that. And then what or who am I going to have to say no to in order to say yes to this other problem that's now come into your life? You better think about that, because there are a lot of people out there saying no over and over to their spouse, to their children, to their family, to their own church family, so that they can go meet the needs and struggles of other people. Needs and struggles. And it all seems so chivalrous, right? It all seems like that's exactly how we should be. But don't forget Jesus' words. Why is that my problem? Is this, in fact, our problem? Look, as we continue to look at Mary in this story, Mary doesn't freeze her life while waiting on God. She doesn't stand by the jars. She doesn't watch the servants. She doesn't stop enjoying the moment, the party, right? She keeps living. That tells us something so powerful. Trusting God doesn't mean your life has to stop until the problem is solved. You can go back to work. You can laugh with your kids. You can show up to dinner. You can enjoy the small moments, right? Even when something is still unresolved. And that's so hard for us. It's so hard, especially if you're a type A personality. You just can't let it go. But listen, that's not the life that God has called you and I to. What are you hovering over right now in your life? I want you to stop and consider that. What have you prayed about, but you're still managing it in your life? Hovering is a sign that you have not actually let that problem go. Mary didn't hover. She simply trusted. When Jesus finally does act, because we know that he did, he turned the water into wine, right? We know that he prayerfully considered this. He said, this is not going to control me, but we can safely assume that he came to the determination that this was the will of his Father to perform this miracle. But notice how he performed it. There was no announcement. There was no spotlight. There was no performance. Most people at the wedding, as far as we know, never knew that this miracle happened. And that's so important. Jesus is not interested in dramatic faith in your life and in mine. He's interested in consistent, everyday faith that is aligned with the will of his Father. He says this over and over and over again. I have come to do the will of my Father. Listen, the only problems that you should be solving, the only struggles that you should be carrying are the ones that God has given you to carry. And that's it. The vast majority are not yours to carry. And it is your job to prayerfully consider those things to determine which ones are yours and which ones are not. God wants faith that waits. Jesus is showing us faith that trusts, obeys, that releases control over to him, truly is releasing control. That guys, that's when joy is restored. That's when Jesus comes in and he does that behind the scenes work, because this was a behind the scenes miracle. And so just remember that. Bring this stuff to God in your everyday life, right? This message is not telling you to do more. It's not fix faster. It's not carry heavier burdens. That's not what it's about. You are allowed to give the problem to Jesus and then, like Mary, walk away. Go live your life. Go back to the party as Mary did, right? Practically, what does this look like in your life and mine? And I'm all done. But listen to this. Seriously, listen to what I'm about to say. Practically, what does it look like to give it to Jesus and walk away? It means that you do not have to answer every text immediately. You don't even have to answer every text. You don't have to solve every family issue. You don't have to rescue people from their consequences. Please know that. Please understand that. There are many things, struggles, heartaches, problems that are entered into people's lives because God has ordained that for them, because God is working with them through things. Oftentimes, we are enabling people by our continued support and help, our continued bailing them out. You have to be so careful, discern, pray about what you're doing. Not every burden is yours. You don't have to carry guilt for things that God hasn't assigned to you. You don't have to say yes just because you're capable. You don't have to keep explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. I hope you're listening to this, guys. You don't have to fix problems that God may be using to mature someone else. You don't have to react immediately when emotions are high. You don't have to make decisions when you're exhausted. Did you know that? You don't actually have to do that. You don't have to carry the emotional weight of everyone around you. You don't have to respond to every opinion or criticism. In fact, most of them you'd do well to let go. You don't have to keep trying to control outcomes that you've already prayed about. That's a huge one. You don't have to stay in conversations that are unproductive or unhealthy. And you don't have to be constantly available to be faithful to your Jesus. Understand this, that some of us are tired because aren't tired because life is hard, okay? That's not really what's going on there. We're tired because we've been carrying things that God never asked us to carry. And if that's you this morning, here's a simple prayer for you, okay? Something that I want you to take into this week. God, what is mine to carry today? What is mine to carry today? And what is not? It's a great way to start your day. God, what do you have for me today? And what do I just need to release it to you and walk away? Here's the invitation for today. It's not try harder. It's not have more faith. It's not be more spiritual. It's just this. What do you need to give to Jesus and stop managing it? And once you give it to him, go back to the party. Go back to life, right? Go live, go be present, go enjoy what God has already given you. Because faith is never proven by anxiety. Your faith is not proven by how many hours you lay awake at night worrying about a problem, a situation, a struggle. That's not faith. That's hovering. That's micromanaging. Faith is proven by trust. Faith is actually truly shown by your ability to walk away from a problem and release it to God. That's faith. Jesus shows us that we don't have to be driven by pressure. Mary shows us that we don't have to stay burdened by what we've surrendered. And together they show us this. Faith isn't about fixing everything. Faith is about trusting God when something runs out and refusing to panic. And guys, that is a lifestyle.